Hello everybody, this is Dr. Willie Jolley, and I am grateful for another opportunity to have Happily Married Monday with the Jolleys. We are excited because we've got special guests. As you can see, it's not just Dee and I, and we've got some special guests, but we want to greet all of you wherever you may be around the globe and say thank you for a couple of things. One, thank you for making this part of your weekly routine to check in with the Jolleys on Happily Married Monday. Second, thank you for sharing this. Hitting the share button. I want you to continue to hit the share button, hitting the share button so everybody can know that we're on and we are giving you some information to help you have a better, greater, more exciting and fulfilling marriage or relationship. And third, we want you to continue to tell folks about this, that we are sharing this online, Facebook Live, Monday nights, 9 o'clock, and that they can join in, and there's no cost. It's free.
And you can ask questions. Hi, Terry Jolley.
So F-R-E.
Welcome. Yes.
So let me tell you about these two good-looking folks who are sitting here with us. I am here in Washington, D.C., and for those who have anything to do with Washington, D.C., know that there's a newspaper called the Washington Post. The Washington Post is a venerable and respected publication. Many years has been the newspaper of Washington, as well as one of the top newspapers in America. And so some months ago in December, I was looking through the Washington Post, and I have a friend, Cortland Malloy, one of the iconic columnists in America, and he's one of the columnists for the Washington Post. He wrote an article, and it was entitled, "A Woman's Call to Live Better Now." And he talked about his neighbors in Fort Washington, Maryland, the Howells, and how Vernon Howell and his wife were an inspiration to him. Here's the bottom line. I'm going to read a little bit of it. Vernell Howell, there's Vernell, they call it V, and this is Tom. Vernell Howell, my neighbor in Fort Washington, Maryland, got some good news not long ago. She had beaten a rare and deadly form of cancer at age 77. The retired D.C. public school teacher had a new lease on life, and she was making the most of it. She'd written a new book about her bout with the disease called My Miraculous Journey from Intensive Care to Intensive Living. I love that. But then as I was intrigued because it was this, first, Cortland's a friend of mine. Second, that she had a book. I'm a published author. But then as I read in depth about the story, there were some things that were so profound in this article about them. One is that they have been married for 55 years. 55 years. He's a retired Air Force officer. 21 years. She's a retired educator at DC Public Schools. And this illness was, she'll tell you more about it, was very, very, very difficult because they had given up, the doctors had given up. I mean, they had said, it's over, she is done. And somewhere in the process, there was a last minute decision to try a bone marrow transplant. And her younger brother, Gregory, stepped up and became the donor, and it worked. And her oncologists at Johns Hopkins have received international acclaim for this breakthrough treatment. So I'll start with that. Tell us the story. I've given them the thumbnail sketch. Y'all been married 55 years.
55.
And did you meet her at Hampton Institute?
I met her at Hampton. That was my first Air Force assignment at Langley Air Force.
Oh, you were in the Air Force, and she was at school.
She was a junior at Hampton, and she had a weekend job at the Officers Club. And so that's where we met. And our first meeting, I would ask her for a date, and she turned me down.
She turned you down?
3 times.
But you were persistent.
You were persistent.
Yeah.
My man.
And she also said that I was a cheap tipper. But that was the start.
That was the start. And so you go on, y'all get married, and you start traveling with him, I guess.
I think one thing that helped us through our marriage, because our first assignment, we had to go to Germany.
Okay.
So we were in Germany for 3 years. He was the only black person in his squadron, and I had no other black lady friends. And so we just had each other. And we had no telephone,
Wow.
no TV, but we had a radio. And we used to listen to, can you believe this? We used to listen to cowboy stories on the radio.
Wow.
I know what time they were coming in, like I want to say, first place to come to my mind, Whip Wilson, whatever the other kind, Roy Rogers, those cowboy stories on the radio, and we listened to those. So we had to build a relationship, and we built a
So
relationship
you know what?
to each other.
They were best friends?
Yeah, best friends.
Wow. So for those who know about our book, Make Love, Make Money, Make It Last,
Yes.
Chapter 1, Friends.
Chapter 1.
Friends First. That of all the marriage of people we've interviewed who've been married over 30 years, all have said successfully married and happily married say that their mate is their best friend, and that they created that, they cultivated that, they worked on that, they developed that. Okay, so you got married, you were in Germany, and you kept on going, kept growing.
Kept
Kept
going.
going.
When was the first child born?
In Germany.
Well,
In Germany.
In Germany. First was born in Germany, and then when we completed that tour, I went straight from Germany to Vietnam, and so she came. So that was our first real separation. Actually, we went to Germany. I went to Germany 30 days after we got married.
Wow.
And so she came over a couple months after. So it was a year of separation, but she stayed with her parents there in Hampton. And so
You're from Hampton?
she's
I'm from Hampton.
And I'm
places
from
to
Hampton.
like.
Wow. Okay, so you from Hampton as well. So you stayed with your parents. You were in Vietnam.
Right.
Okay, and you had one child at that point.
Right.
Okay, and then you came back.
Mhm.
And where'd you go next?
We came to D.C.
Okay.
But the thing of it is, with a lot of military families and everything, she had to develop a lot of independence and everything because she was raising a daughter while I'm there in Vietnam.
Wow.
And then when she came to D.C., the first place we moved, she bought the house in Hyattsville. I never saw the house until I got here, but just had that complete confidence. And but again, that's a thing of learning to be independent.
So you started down, and have you been in D.C. since then?
Yeah, we were in. I've been hit about 2 tours in D.C. and so we were in D.C. For 5 years, and so then I got selected to go to Air Command and Staff College down in Montgomery, Alabama. But I figured that's one thing I learned: not try to beat the Air Force and everything. I said, okay, since I'm going to be coming back here, why move the family down there? And so I went and I spent that year at school by myself. But then about halfway through the school year, someone discovered that they'd never had a black officer be on the faculty there at Command and Staff. So they said, okay, and that would be me. So they ended up moving to Alabama.
Oh, you moved
anyhow.
anyway, yeah.
Did you keep your house here?
No, we didn't. We didn't keep that. But the thing of it is that, again, the Lord just moved. It was such a blessing because my home is Tuskegee, Alabama, which is only about 40 miles from Montgomery. And my father had been in poor health, and so this provided the opportunity where we could go there every weekend, and that also strengthened the relationships with my parents and everything. She can tell you more about my mother and father than I can.
Wow,
that is wonderful.
Wow, that's wonderful. And so and one of your parents is still alive.
No, nobody's.
Oh, I thought I read an article.
My mother was 97 when she
Okay,
passed, and she
okay.
had just passed
When,
after I had completed my lymphoma.
okay, so anyway, you had this marriage. You went to Alabama, and yet you continued to grow your friendship and your marriage.
Right.
And so that's going down. Because really what we want to talk about is, in our book, we talk about the fact that marriage is not, love is an emotion. Marriage is a decision.
Exactly.
It's a decision. And I shared the story about my neighbors who, as I grew up in Northwest Washington, a neighbor down a couple of houses down, they were 2 husband and wife, 4 kids, and we grew up together. My kids, their kids, and my brother and I were best friends, and we went off to college and went off to grad school. And every now and then, though, after I got married and moved away, I'd ride by and I see this couple on the porch in their 70s holding hands, rocking in a rocking chair, and then into their 80s holding hands, rocking in a rocking chair. When he died, they asked me to eulogize him, and that's when I found out he had had 2 children with women in the neighborhood outside the marriage. And at the funeral, I went up to his wife and hugged her, and she said, "You didn't know, did you?" I said, "No, ma'am." She said, I made a vow. It's richer for poor, sickness or in health, for better for worse. I kept my vow through the worst. I kept my vow. And she accepted those children as her own. And so when I read this article in the Washington Post about her illness, there's a line in here I want to read to you because this is so profound. I thought it was so powerful as I read it. He talked about how when she was at her sickest, on many a morning, Cortland writes, I'd see Vernell and Tom leaving home for a 90-minute round-trip drive to Johns Hopkins Medical Center in Baltimore. In her book, she described how he'd sit with her at the hospital and read Bible scriptures to her and pray with her and cheer her with recollections of their good times together. They've been married 55 years. And he said, when he said he'd take me in sickness and in health, he meant it, she told me. And that was what struck me, because it says, in richer for poor, in sickness or in health, for better for worse. And they have exhibited and exemplified in sickness and in health. Let's talk about that. So Tom, she was sick. You know, there have been more than one story of a couple. One of them gets sick, and the other one says, "Well, you know, I'm out of here."
Exactly.
You know, let's talk about what kept you in sickness and in health.
Well, in fact, what the point you're making was just reinforced. Maybe a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a young lady up at the hospital, and she was undergoing treatment, and she said she was in the process of getting a divorce.
Wow.
And she said that her husband couldn't handle this, and she was talking about the illness and everything. That never came into my mind. Okay, it's just you do things, and really you don't think about it that much. You just do, and you find a lot about feelings and everything when you're going through something. You know, it's not something you can just talk about and everything.
Yeah.
But it's like, and sometimes there's communication where it's happening and you're not talking. Okay, and so I could drive out of here and start heading up to Baltimore, and we'd get up there by the Beltway, and she's gone to sleep. You know, and they're trying to rest. You know. But she'd always wake up when we would get, what's the name of this? Monroe, when you're coming into Baltimore. And someone would wake her up, and then we would talk and everything. But it's a lot of times the most valuable communication was actually not spoken. You just
Being there.
Just being
Your
there.
It's called
presence.
presence. It's called the ministry of presence.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that ministry of presence, though, was something that was instilled. So,
How
V,
did that
You
make
know,
you
I
feel?
want to say this, go back to the point that he made about the young lady that we just met a few. I'm going through breast cancer now, so I'm taking radiation, so this is where we met this young lady. But I said to Tom when he told me that, I said, I just don't understand. After all these years of marriage, they had 3 children.
wow.
And this one child was now at home and was a senior. And in her sickness, he just says, I can't do this. I can't go through this cancer with you.
Why?
And just, we don't know.
We don't know. We don't know the motivation.
But the fact of it is that we're talking about in sickness and in health.
Yes.
And in this
Wow.
sickness and health, this is what he could not take. And he left her at, I think, one of her weakest times when she probably needed him the most. I want to say this was my weakest time. You know, there were times I couldn't eat, I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, I couldn't do it. But I knew that he was there when we talk about this presence.
Yeah.
That he was always there. And then when he would come in the morning, and sometimes when he would come in, I says, you know, oh, I am just so sick. And he would just stop. I would see him on the side of the bed, and he would lift up a prayer. I didn't hear the words of prayer, what he was saying in his prayer, but I knew that he was praying for me.
And how did that make
And-
you feel?
You know, I felt like, God, you with me. You haven't abandoned me, but you're with me. and we're going to get through this.
Amen.
I'm going to fight. I'm going to give it all that I got.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the best. I always told the doctors, I'm going to be the best patient. And I literally meant that. I'm going to be the best patient that you ever had. I used to tell my students, I'm going to be the best teacher that you ever had. And you're going to be my best students. Always the best. Give your best. And when you're doing that, internally, despite the fact that you're sick, when you're embodied with those words that you say to yourself, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this.
You're
I
speaking
know
it
that
into
I
being.
know that he's helping me to do this.
Yes.
But I really believe that it is true.
This is so
Speaking it
profound.
into
It's so
being.
profound. So many of you know about my Sirius XM show, and on my Sirius XM show, some years ago, I did an interview with two people who never talked to, have never met each other. I had one already scheduled, and I saw the other one the night before the interview was to take place. And as I talked to her, I said, is there any way I can get you on my show tomorrow? We're doing a special on cancer. The one I had already planned, he had beaten stage 4 throat cancer. And this lady I saw at the Cheesecake Factory, I'm eating dinner, and I see her, and she had beaten stage 4 pancreatic cancer that metastasized into stage 4 colon cancer.
Right.
And now 10 years later, all she takes is a aspirin. And they talked about, both of them, about your will to fight,
Yeah.
your will to not accept this diagnosis
And not give up.
and not give up and give in to what the doctors have given. And what I love to say in my speeches is doctors give you the diagnosis. God gives you the prognosis.
Amen.
And so you got a prognosis that God said, it ain't over. You shall live and not die. You shall live a long time and not die. And so this is an example. But here's what I love most about this article is that her husband, he accepted this fact that I'm in it for the long haul. This is not something that is short. And I believe God is going to heal her, and I'm going to stand with her through it.
You know,
That's it.
the other thing that Tom says, and you may want to expound on this more, Tom said that his prayer was not necessarily, you want to talk about that,
Yep.
was not necessarily that I would necessarily just live and be able to get up and carry on, but I would be able to live to be able to do a service,
Amen.
to give myself, to do, you know, to live in the best condition that I could live.
And the book wasn't finished when this was right.
No,
See, God had something bigger and better inside
It was
her.
never even thought of.
Wow.
Never even thought of.
Wow. Okay, Tom, expand on
But,
that.
yeah, but it's like when you're riding in the car and you're driving by yourself and everything. And of course, I'm in prayer. Well, first thing I'll say something else about. It was one stage she was in the hospital for about 65 days.
Wow.
So I'm making that drive every day. So I was talking to a group of young adults the other night, and I said one thing that comes clear to me: we have a lovely home and everything, but she's not here. So if she's not here, this is not home. Okay? And so
Just a house.
so when you start talking about a house is not a home, that became evident. So I couldn't wait to get out of bed in the morning. I believe I get out that bed at 5 o'clock. I told folks I've mastered a technique of getting in and out of the bed. I call it slip in, slip out technique. I slide out of the bed and fold that thing over so it makes my house look presentable and everything, and it would go up. But in prayer, and I would hear the Lord just say a simple thing: "I've got this."
Wow.
That's all I ever heard was "I've got this." I didn't know what that meant. I've got this can mean that I'm calling her home.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got this, can mean any number of things. And so I always prayed though that that she be healed, so that she could do what she's always done, and that's to serve others. And so that was the whole thing. But I'm saying something you mentioned about presence.
Yeah.
Let's think about presence. Our dealing with this didn't start with the illness. I was thinking about this after you all had talked about doing this. Get to thinking about it, and all through our marriage, we've always done things together. It's always been, and so for over 30 years now, she and I have worked. We started out working with the youth ministry, and we were directors of the youth ministry, and now we're the advisors for the young adult ministry. But the thing of it is that we're always working together, and so this of dealing with the illness was a continuation
Wow.
Together.
of what
And-
we've always been
And we
doing
sing in the choir
working
together, and
Yeah.
we're both deacons together.
Wow.
So when he was involved with one thing, I was involved with the same thing. Maybe not in the key role, but I was there in the background doing something. So
Supporting
I say,
each other.
yeah. So I say to all the young couples or whatever you're doing, if you're in it together, if this one is going one way, Tom always tells the story about when we met and I had a girlfriend, a dear friend of mine, and she had her set of friends, and he had his set of friends. He would go bowling, and she was somewhere. So they weren't doing things together.
Okay, big point, big point. I want y'all to hear that one. Say that again about one going that way and one and not doing. That's powerful.
You have to be in it together. One can't say, I'm gonna do this, and this Tuesday night is my night, and I'm out with the guys and I'm bowling. Well, Wednesday night is my day out, and I'm out with the girls and we're having a book club. So that's fine, but make sure that you understand, well, when you go and when we come back, maybe we can share and we can, talk about
Yes.
this together. Don't let it all be just one side. And then make sure that you find time to do things together, that you're involved in church together. One don't go to church and one sit at home. One don't go and do all these
That's
things.
like having date,
Date night. That's what we
that
talked
time
about here.
together.
We just said, for those who
Yes.
might know, you might be looking, who just saw us at First Baptist of Glenarden's annual Love Notes, where Dee and I were the featured speakers on this last
On Saturday morning,
And we had a
marriage tune-up.
tune up 300 couples. It was dynamite, but we asked how many, we talked about date night, how important it was in our message. And then we asked as each one came to get books signed, do you have a date night? And most did not.
Or
did
they
not.
stumble through. They're kind of like,
Or
well,
I
we
started,
sort
I
of
used
know.
to, and something, we had a baby or somebody.
You really need date night when you
yeah.
have children.
And
you
so
really need
before
it.
you know it, they're going different directions.
Yes.
And what V just said was, it's so critical. You can have your bowling if that's your thing and your book club, but when are your date night? Why is it important that you put those other things in your schedule, but you won't put a date night for your spouse in your schedule? We put it in our schedule. Every Thursday night, 8 o'clock, our date night. Now, that we started over 30 years ago.
We had children and we had bills, no money to go out, so we had date night at home.
That's a big point that
Yes.
yesterday we
Minnie said,
Minnie said,
we didn't have money.
We don't have no money to go out. We said, oh, you don't need money. You just need to be together. And you can't talk about the kids
Or the bills.
or the bills because you didn't have either when you were dating.
And you know, another thing in terms of saying that, we didn't have any money either. But you know what we would do? We would go to the park and we would take those left breadcrumbs and things, just sit there and feed the ducks. Just sit there,
Just
whatever.
time together.
Museums, he always tells the young adults. There's so many things here in Washington. Look at all these
Yes.
free museums they have, free parks that they have
Yes.
to go to. Explore and do those different things.
That's a great idea. Great idea. Museums and just spending time in the park, talking. Dating. It's a date. It's a date. Go to date. Well,
And go to church.
And go to church. Go to church. V has a terrific new book called My Miraculous Journey from Intensive Care to Intensive Living. Vernell, VERNELLP Howell, HOWELL. Where can they get this, V?
They can go to Amazon.com and you can get the book.
I want y'all all to go get the book, and it will inspire. We still got a couple more things out of this that was so profound in this article. Here's a quote that I loved. Time is not promised and waits for no one. This was something she wrote in the book. She'd taken that lesson to heart, stopped talking about writing a book, wrote it, and made herself a website, mymiraculousjourney.com. And Cortland said that resonated with him. And another year had passed with much of it procrastinating and fuming, complaining about what it can't change while others can't change, looking for others to fume on, losing sight of more important things in a fog of time. But in her book, V emphasized the things we should focus on. So you can take a lot of time going off, but she focused on the thing you should, building closer and loving relationships with friends and family. This is a big one. That if relationships are broken, restore them. I can't say that enough about families and relationships. If they're broken, fix them. If you can, do all you can And that was important, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I've said for years that that's a quality I admire probably most about her. She's better at it than me. And that is, when it tells you if you have aught with someone or if there's a problem, she doesn't let the sun go down. She addresses it. And that can solve a whole lot of things because you don't let it grow and fester.
Wow.
Bitterness will not get you anywhere.
Amen. Bitterness won't get you anywhere. It won't. And in here, she says they are both devout members of the Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia. She put faithfulness at the top of her life lessons list. Love the Lord, God, at all times, she writes. He is with us even in our darkest hours. And another one says, keep your body in good health and physical condition, and meet new friends, encourage, inspire others, and keep a positive mindset, especially during tough times.
Now how do you keep yourself in great physical condition? You guys walk, you're on the water.
They have a beautiful home. We're in their home doing this interview. Beautiful. You can see the river right outside this. There's a big windows from ceiling to floor, 2 stories. Beautiful.
Well, when you talk about all these beautiful things, you can have the smallest or whatever it is that you have. A small car, a small wardrobe, whatever it is. But you find ways to make yourself happy. You find ways to take care of your body. Yes, I walk, try to walk at least 3 to 4 miles a day.
Wow. 3 or 4 miles a day.
Yeah. But I don't walk, when the weather is cold, I'm not an outside person. So I walk around the house. And I'll turn on the TV station, whatever's on for an hour, hour and a half, and I will walk throughout that without stopping.
For an hour, an hour and a half walking.
I don't do that.
What do you do?
But no, I'll say this. I'll say this is that I threw out a program in church of fasting and everything, and so a part of that was walking 30 minutes a day. And and I just circled right around here in this house. The thing of it is just getting up and doing it. Did the 30 minutes. Also, we're doing the vegetable diet thing and fasting, etc. So then I went to a doctor, for my physical. My blood pressure was lower than it's been in years.
Wow.
And so it's yeah.
Wonderful.
You do the physical thing, and also believe we work together in church and everything, but perhaps one of the I say penetrating statements that came to me anyhow was not from my wife, but it was from my son. And it used to be that over at the church, as I said, my wife and I worked together. Every time the church door opened, it seemed like we were there.
Wow.
Okay, there was a meeting, we'd be there. And so one night we're heading out, and my son, he wasn't that long, but he said, "Y'all going to church again?" Again. That's all he said with that again. And so this goes back to your point about presence. That spoke to this thing about presence. So it's not just the thing of husband and wife, but it's also with family, and that's that quality time.
But you didn't finish the part when he said again. So what happened after his again? What happened after my son's again? We stopped dead in our tracks, took our coats off, put our books down, and we were home.
Wow. Spending time with family. Now let's talk now that we've talked about some of the points in this article, which is so profound, and the fact that it's just, I encourage people to I tell you what, if you will send me an email, in fact, I'll see if Cheryl can post the article on our Facebook page so y'all can read it. It's very encouraging, and I still want you to go get her book, My Miraculous Journey from intensive care to intensive living. And I guess that picture was taken out there on your wall, wasn't it? Beautiful with the sunset, and she's given a victory sign, and so praise the Lord for that. Now,
can I say one more thing?
Yes.
As you talked about being married for 20 months. There are so many different ways that you can show love.
Yes.
So maybe you try to find different ways. Tom will start coming downstairs one day. He says, "What are you doing?" And maybe I'll just go, "What are you doing 2 weeks from now?" I says, "I don't know what we're doing." He says, "Well, I just booked reservations and we're going so."
Oh,
nice.
So the surprise element, and maybe he planned, and I like that, or either we'll say, okay, let's go to the movies today.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have a whole lot of money, but let's get up and let's go to do something.
So that's why I want to focus in
Yeah.
now. We've focused in on the health. I want to focus in on how y'all stayed married 55 years and happily married. What are the secrets? And so a couple things I want to ask. We do research on the three things that break up marriages: sex, money, and communication. So let's talk about money for a minute. Y'all got married right out of college.
Mm-hmm.
You were
A couple of years out of college.
a couple years out of college. What we found in our research that there are three systems that people who are married typically successfully, happily deal with. There's a one-pot program,
Yep.
two-pot program, or three-pot program.
So where do you fit?
Where do y'all fit?
One pot.
One pot. One pot?
One pot.
Who take care of the bills? Who writes the
She
checks?
does.
So that just confirmed for those who were at the seminar on Saturday that we talked about people who started young with no major assets typically did the one pot, where all the money comes in and goes into one pot, and one person is responsible for that pot, and y'all talked about everything.
Right.
Every expenditure. For those who are a little older, we found maybe 29, 30, who may not have a house, may have an apartment and a car. We found that often was the two-pot philosophy or strategy, where someone would take the mortgage, one would take the utilities, one would take this. Now, our friend Michelle Singletary,
Color of Money,
Color
right?
of Money,
Washington
for
Post.
Washington Post. She doesn't like that system. She said that's really a fancy roommate strategy. But then there was a three-part. Now, the three-part is what Dee and I do. I had my own checking account. I had my own money. I was used to spending, and I'm very frugal. She was older. She already had a life that fancy.
I had a house.
Had a house, the whole
okay.
deal. She had her own. So what we did was I put her name on my checking account. She put my name on her checking account, and then we created a third account.
Household account.
Household account. We both both contributed, and then she wrote the checks. She wrote the
But
checks.
we talk about Sue. We talk about
Every-
everything.
Now we talked about one more thing yesterday. We didn't get to it yesterday on that with at the marriage seminar, is how you go from a me to we, which we used in the book. And by the way, the book is Make Love, Make Money, Make It Last. You can get it at jollymarriage.com. And the new order is coming in. So we've sold out the first order. We had to have a rush print for the seminar. And we got the new order coming in this week. So you should be able to get access to that, as well as the audio book is finished, just about finished. The workbook is just
The
about
audio
finished.
book is finished and available. The
No,
workbook.
the audio live is finished.
Oh, okay.
The audio
live.
book is finished. So the audio live is available at jollymarriage.com/live, and you should get that. Everybody should have that. Every married couple, because it's the truth. We don't hold. My wife is straight, no chaser about that. And we talk about sex, marriage, communication in marriage, and money in marriage. Anyway, but we didn't talk about me to we, which is our friends the Pembertons. They had a three-part. He had been a very successful salesman, and she had been a very successful teacher, and they created a third part. And one day he riding home and said he liked nice cars. He riding home and said, "Let me stop at a Mercedes dealership. I just want to see what it." And I saw this beautiful new sedan they had on the market. And he said, "Oh, my wife would love that. That would be so nice for." And he went home and he said, "Look at the new car outside." And she said, "I got a baby on the way. We didn't talk about this. This is not how we supposed to do. Even though you have some money, we got to talk about the big spending expenditures." And he said, "I learned that day to go from me to we. And so let's talk about, okay, y'all got the one part. Now let's talk about communication. Let's say you have a disagreement, okay? Something you disagree about. How do you handle that? How do you handle when you're maybe a little upset? Or have you ever been upset? Or how do you handle, one of the things we found consistently is that married people who are happily married have a system of fixing those.
Do you ever disagree?
Oh, yeah.
How about we start there?
Everybody disagrees, but I think that we don't have a system as such, and I think that what I said earlier about her not letting things rest, you know, or festering and dressing. I think that's a key
So
element.
you fix it before the sun goes down, before you go to bed?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
but it's also a thing of where, because I'll have a tendency sometimes to shut down a bit and just get quiet. I mean, I'm just having to have to process, you know. But she has the spirit and everything she can ride that thing out, but we know that eventually, you know, it has to be addressed.
So she will. Y'all will talk about it.
She's the key.
She's the key. She addresses these things and say, let's get them done. And that's what we want people
And you
to do.
have to know, say for instance, if he comes in upset about job, about whatever it is, and you can tell when your mate is upset.
Yeah.
And then if there was something that happened the evening before and you don't talk about it, well, when he comes in that day, it's not the time to bring it up then. You have to know.
But that's because y'all got to know each other.
Right.
Yeah.
But we've never had a problem about finances.
Okay.
And the thing of it is that when you talk about one pot or whatever, you know, if you were to ask me right now, what's there in the account, I can't tell you.
Because
I just trust, and in fact, the thing that we've had over the years, I've had to try to press her to do more things for herself. I never went into a department store probably for the first 30 years of marriage. I mean, and the guys would tease me and say, man, I see your wife dressed you today. I said, yeah, and that's fine. So, I mean, really, you know, and some people don't have that problem, but I've
well, let's talk about trust. Because one of the things that we found of marriages that are successful, like y'all's, 55 years, is that you trust her implicitly.
Oh, yes.
I trust her implicitly. And not only has they never given us a reason to trust, but more importantly, that we've developed a friendship where she is my trusted advisor. Okay, so one of the things we talk about is, in our book, how to handle stalemates, and the fact that if we're riding down the road and I want to go left, she want to go right, I want to go left, we come to a dead end. We got to go one way or the other. I want to go left, she want to go right. Which way we usually go? I usually will go her way because I figured that she has seen something I haven't seen. She knows something I don't know. She's going to give me good counsel. We in this together. Is that what you would say with you two?
I think we fit the stereotype. The big thing is that, you know, the scenario works. Do you know where you're going? Why don't you stop and ask? That's one of those stereotypes. That's one of those stereotypes. I mean, I'm against stereotypes, but that one is pretty, I know where I'm going. And you just go and you
so,
just have to
I'm going to ask you a question. You got 2 children. When they were getting married, what was some of the counsel you gave them? Or people, young people at your church, what is counsel for staying happily married when you talk to young people who are about to get married? What are some of the things you advise them to do?
Well, there's 2 different things. There's 2 sets to work with. There are those, we work with the young adult ministries, and so I don't know if your church, but we have a situation where there's a lot more young ladies than there are men.
There are a lot of young ladies in your church.
And so one of the situations they face is actually just meeting people, you know, and you can talk scripture about being evenly yoked and everything. I was telling the other night, some of them, I understand you, but I just want to get in the game. You know, let me have
That's honesty.
That's honesty. That's right.
Let me have a date, you know, and so. So you talk to them, and so the main counseling over the years, and especially to young ladies, you know, because they feel the clock ticking more than male.
Yes.
But I say, whatever, don't get this attitude that being married is once is better than not having been married at all. And that's because I've seen that happen. I've seen some.
So that's what we're
aisle.
walking down the aisle with the wrong one.
And you knew it right from the start. This ain't right.
So the idea is, let me get married, not the focus of this particular person, but the concept
It's
of
the
marriage.
concept of getting married.
Which is always, it looks greener on the other side.
But
You don't know what's going on.
when you're talking to premarital counseling, in fact, my roots are deeper in that my mother was a professor at Tuskegee, and she taught a course for years in marriage and the family. I don't even know whether you find a college campus where that's being taught anymore.
Marriage and
family. That was a course at Tuskegee Institute that she taught for years. And so you say, wow. So then in premarital, I also have a philosophy, and I tell young couples, I said, you know, my belief is that if you spent almost as much time in working on the marriage as you do in preparing for the wedding,
Yes.
you're
Yes.
much more likely to have success.
Wow.
So you've got all sorts of different elements and everything, but people come to you whether it's about raising your children and say, what's your secret? And you can say, well, I can tell you what we did, but I can turn right around and find somebody that seemingly has done the very same thing and it hasn't worked the same way.
Wow.
You know? So that's why I always sort of steer clear against this is the formula. You know, I think the presence is the nearest thing that I know of you got to have.
V, you were going to say
I was going to say the fact that I tell them, do you love this person or do you like this person? Do you all just enjoy it? Do you love? Because I've had situations, especially a couple of friends of my family, says, I just want to get married, and what I'm going to do, we're going to grow into this relationship. You
Okay.
can't change anybody.
No.
What you get, what's dealt to you, that's what you're going to get. You think you can go and change and make somebody into what you want it to be? It's not going to work.
So we love this quote by Zig Ziglar, and we put it in our book. In the book, for those who don't know, we got a chapter on for single, for those not
Those
yet married.
not yet married.
And in that chapter, we talk about some of the things that we recommend for people who are not yet married. One is that you make sure you get to know that person, that you look for somebody who's your best friend. And then if you're infatuated, which is what you said, they got a lot of like, then you make sure you have a 3-day test, a 5-day test, and a 30-day test. Now, the 3-day test is you go away for a weekend, no sex. Sex clouds everything. 3 days, do you like being around the person? Can you talk? Or is it always just been about hopping into bed? I mean, that's attractive. Then the 5-day test is you go away for 5 days and see if you still no sex and see if you like being around them. Do the little things that bother you. Then the 30-day test, you got to be in the same city for at least 30 days, which is something I talked about. One of my friends when I was in college, his girlfriend was in Hampton University. He was at Howard. And they would meet on the weekends and they had a great, it was always popping. I mean, it was just wonderful. And then she'd come to visit him, and he had a very nice job even while he was in school. And on Friday night, he'd take her to dinner. Saturday morning, he'd take her to brunch. Saturday evening, they'd go to a play. Sunday morning, they'd go to church and then go to brunch. And it was like that. And every time she'd come, when they finally got married, right out of college, had never lived in a city together for more than, a weekend. They got married. They lasted for 6 months because when they got married, she was expecting that same kind of life every weekend, going to the theater, going to brunch. Well, who's gonna clean up the house? Who's gonna work? So it was fantasy island, and that's not how life is. So what we say, you got to have a 30-day test, being around each other for 30 days, same city. We've had a number of people we've recommended who did not take our advice and ended up breaking up. Now, here's what we want to say to people. What they have said is so profoundly true, that you must get to like somebody. Is it like or love? And you got to be a like for as friends, best friends, but then learn, are you in love with them? Are you willing to take for health, for better, for worse, for richer, for forward, sickness and health?
And everyone has idiosyncrasies.
Right. Everybody got some
deal with
issues.
them?
Can you deal with them? Let me
They're
say that.
not going to
Lord
change.
have mercy. Let me say that, because my wife is a character. All right. She is a character, but I
Now,
love
what does
her.
that mean?
Go ahead, V. please.
Question
Right.
to you and your wife about the book, and maybe to us too, because we never experienced it. So many of the young people today, they live together
Yep.
for 6 months, a year,
Try
more than
5,
that.
6,
They
more
live
years.
together for years. We're gonna live together for a while, and then we're gonna get married.
Statistics don't buy into that. Now, the stats
Doesn't
show that people who live together and get married don't stay together typically.
Yeah.
You know, that's what stats show. Now, I can't give you any
So
research
why
on
are
that.
you? So you think, why are you living together? Let's see if it's going to work. But until you make
the commitment.
That decision, the
That's-
commitment
This
is
is
very
about commitment,
different.
and
because
I
you've
love
got
her.
one foot out the door. Well, let me see. And you tend to put your best
all right,
foot.
here's
You
what-
don't have any responsibility to
All right.
anybody.
So I always ask people to use this test. Dee, pick up those glasses. Put them down. Don't pick them up. Don't put them down. Now try to pick them up. You either do or you don't. You don't try. Part of the reason why they've been married for 55 years is they made a commitment that marriage is a decision and that divorce was not an option.
Exactly.
Am I right?
Correct.
Yeah, you work at it.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
that
didn't give up
it
with the
applies-
bumps in the road.
Yeah, but it applies to more things than just marriage.
Yeah,
I mean,
life.
When I was working, some young people would come to me and say, I'm thinking about leaving, and I never tried to talk anybody out of leaving, but I would just ask them questions as to why, and I'd always say, make sure that you're leaving to go towards something rather than leaving something, because where you're talking about leaving for something, it's probably going to be, you're going to find the same thing somewhere else. One of the things I find, though, especially when dealing with younger adults and everything, I'm trying to tell them, stop looking at every person you meet as a potential relationship, okay? Go with the flow. Just meet, you find yourself in conversation with somebody, and somebody may about to say something about, I've been looking for somebody to go to the ball game. Okay, hey, fine, go,
With no
don't-
expectation.
No thinking beyond that, but I think sometimes there's this thing of wanting to look at every
Right.
thing as a potential relationship. Is this the one?
Right.
It may
But once
be,
you
and it
find a
may not
good
be.
friend, it start with a good friend who you enjoy spending time with. And the only way you can learn that is spending time with them.
But that comes over time.
That comes over time.
I tell people one of the things, they say, well, when did you know you wanted to get married? And I said, well, we just felt comfortable,
well,
I
let's
didn't
go
have
back to that.
I didn't have to be thinking about.
Well, I do
what
want to go
do
back
for
to
a
that.
date. Okay, go
How many
ahead.
times she turned you down?
3 times.
But let me
No,
say,
that's when he
Dating.
was trying to get
No, I'm saying when
when
they
he
was
could
first.
go out on a date.
Yeah, and she obviously she gave him a time to figure out whether she liked him or not, or wanted to spend time with him, and you liked him.
Yeah, and I enjoyed her family. We had great times together.
What were you gonna say, V?
I forgot.
What were you gonna say about when y'all were dating?
I know what I was gonna say. But when we were going together, and I remember one thing my mother said in terms of relationship. Don't you always say, okay, if he invites you somewhere, you want to go somewhere, don't pick the most expensive. I'm gonna take you out to dinner. Don't pick the most expensive place that you want to go, because man might not have all that money. Just talk about what it is that you want to do, or if it's something free, or if we're gonna take you to a movie, or take you. Don't look for the. And we've had a situation where a young lady came over. She says, "Well, he's asking where shall I go?" And the young man came back and says, "Well, I'm gonna take her." Well, I was disappointed because she picked a 5-star restaurant, and I didn't have the 5-star restaurant.
Wow.
But I asked her out for a date. Then I turned around and asked her, "Well, where would you like to go?" And this is what she said. So, find something that's
And
affordable.
why did she
for-
pick the 5-star? She wasn't really interested in him
Per se.
per se.
Okay. Well, when we were dating, I'd say, where you want to go? And she said, we're not going, we're going to walk to the giant food store. I'm going to buy me some food.
What?
Yeah, we walked through a snowstorm, giant food store. She cooked some
Chitlins.
No, actually, my mama would cook chitlins.
My mama, she cooked a little chicken, a little Cornish hen. We sat and talked, and we liked talking.
Oh, good.
Okay.
We liked talking. So these are
I was
are
always a cheap date, by the way.
She's always been a great cheap
It's
date.
really cheap.
So it worked out well for me. I loved it. So
It's funny now, we laugh about it, but when we were going together, and I was at Langley, and so young lieutenants would get together at the club and be happy hour, and so the easiest thing is just to pay the round of drinks, okay? And so anyhow, I would whisper to her, okay, now, when it's my time, you just sit this one out,
Save that little bit of money.
Save that little bit of money. You're my kind of man.
Save that
Well,
little bit of money.
we're again with V and Tom Howell. She has a book called My Miraculous Journey from Intensive Care to Intensive Living, and that's what you're doing now. You're living in intention and intensively.
Yes.
And y'all are doing that. I really am so impressed with them. They are people who put God first.
Yeah.
They put God first. They love each other. They have such wonderful spirits. When we first talked to them, I called Cortland and said, after I read the article, I mean, immediately I said, I've got to interview these folks, Cortland. He said, let me reach out to them and I'll get back to you. He did. He gave me their number. I called them. They were so easy and pleasant, so calm and nice. And then I introduced them to Dee. She talked to them and we said, we're going to find a time to come and interview you for our Happily Married Monday. And we are so grateful that they found time to make this available because they too want to help marriages. We all know that 50% of marriages break up, and includes 50% of Christian marriages, faith-based marriages, and that usually is little things that weren't taken care of, dealt
Let
with.
me add to that, but research shows that of the 50% or so that are left, 40% of them don't like going home.
They're miserable.
So they're miserable in their relationships. Here's the other thing. The growing divorce rate is of those who are over the age of 50.
Oh, wow.
So their children are now, because you're together for the kids, everything is about the children, they're now grown and gone, and you look at each other and you discover you're not friends. You don't have anything in common. And so the divorce is called the gray divorce. Because there are people over the age of 50 who are saying, I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm not with somebody I really care about.
Right.
But they lost the opportunity to do that because they did not work on their relationship,
Let me
on
also-
their friendship.
Let me also add something to that. Sometimes when I had a friend that she says, I was so busy working on my career and advancing in my career that I should have been doing the same thing at home
Wow.
and didn't do the same thing.
Date night. You can be busy, but you make sure you have a date night where everybody gets busy. Schedule what's important. You schedule in your phone what's important. Oh, I got a meeting. I got a call. That date night, we are encouraging you. You don't have to spend any money, but spending time intentionally. One guy said, well, you know, we go out a lot on dates. I said, yeah. Oh, we go out a lot. We go to dinner. Or we go here or there. I said, is it intentional, though? I said, you know, I could take a walk to, let's say, a mile away to go to the grocery store and then walk back. But that's one thing. I'm going to get groceries. But when I take that walk with an intention of exercise, that's different than when I just go to get groceries. So
Before you close out,
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you, Dee, and thank you, Willie, for inviting us to be part of this program. Just sitting here to talk, we can always learn something new.
Oh, well.
And we're in the process, no matter how 55 years, we're also learning too.
That's why they've got a
Wow.
great marriage, because they're still learning, they're still loving, and this article shows that they're willing to take for richer for poor, for better for worse, in sickness and in health. And we wanted to focus on, in sickness and in health, how he sat by her bed, day in and day out, praying for his wife, and reading her scriptures, and saying, I'm here for you, and God has made me let you know, I got this. And so we want to thank V and Tom Howell. We want to encourage you. We're gonna get this article, put it on the Facebook page so you can read it, as well as want you to go and get a copy of this book. Amazon.com. It's called My Miraculous Journey from Intensive Care to Intensive Living. It will bless you. And if you know somebody who's struggling with cancer or struggling with health issues, get a copy. Let them know this story will encourage them that the doctors have given up, but God had not given up. And her husband prayed her through. One last thing I got to share is this. We had the DeBow family, who Mrs. DeBow was the one who told me she had beaten cancer 4 times. And she said, I might have cancer, but cancer does not have me. As well as, she said, doctor gives you the diagnosis, but God gives you the prognosis. She was a school teacher, so I got a lot to do. She lived 25 years more after the diagnosis, where the doctors had given up. But here's something: when she was at one of her really tough moments, her family sat by her bedside. They took turns.
Yes.
In the
Everybody
hospital.
in the hospital, they took turns
So we talked
making
about
sure, and that's what she says
Okay.
happened in this book, that somebody was there and somebody showed that they loved them, and she had that spirit. Because of that, I'm fighting. And she refused to give up. I'm telling you, this will bless somebody who's going through a tough time. And I want y'all to get a copy.
I'm so glad that you brought that, because this pertains so much more than just to marriage. And in fact, so many people, the longer people live, the more likely you're going to encounter a situation within your family. I know people in my own circle, people are coming down with diagnosis of dementia. Okay,
Yes.
that's a caregiving challenge if there
Yes.
ever was one.
Yes.
Okay, and so I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it's more than just this marriage thing, or but like I said, when it says from intensive care to intensive living, and I also tell people you don't have to be just alike. In fact, we use the illustration the other night. It says part of this intensive living, we went to Dominican Republic a couple months ago, and we were down there on the beach. We went up there, and we went up, the highlight was went parasailing, okay?
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
But the thing
You
about
went
it,
parasailing?
we went parasailing, this was a couple months ago, but the thing of it is the point I made.
77, how old?
77
I'm
and 80,
79.
almost 80.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, but the thing of it is that I was telling the young adults, I said, look at this picture. There's a lot in this picture. One, when you go up and the photographer's down there, okay, no, show you're excited. She's like this. She's wide open. I'm like this. Okay? And the thing of it is that that's the way that we are. She's much more wide open than me. But yet, so you don't have to be alike.
Yes.
And
You
so,
compliment each
yeah,
other.
you compliment, and so. But I'm so glad though that it's a caregiver, whether it's the same, whether it's for a mate, or whether it's for a mom or a relative or a thing. And again, I prayed and everything, but again, one of the most meaningful things happened to me. I teach Sunday school, and I would do that. And my daughter would come from Virginia Beach. She said, "All right, Dad, you could go teach Sunday school." So one night, it was on Saturday night, I had a young lady in the class that called me and said, "Ding, how can I do something in Sunday school tomorrow?" And I said, "Sure." Didn't ask her what it is that she wanted to do. She came, after I got through with the lesson, she got up, she started talking, and she's a first grade teacher, and she's distributing little flowers, and she's saying scripture and stuff at the same time. And then she goes away, her back is to me, and she picks up this poster, and she turns, and on the poster is this scripture, and she's walking toward me, and the scripture says, "This sickness is not unto death."
Wow.
Nothing has hit me more than that.
Wow.
And so it's a thing that I share, because this is a young lady that I know and everything, and that she felt that message and everything and was able to convey. So we can do these types of things not only with our mates, but with our friends, etc. And that's just caring.
One more thing to tell, I want you to tell, when I was in the intensive care for 65 days, not inside intensive care, but in the hospital for 65 days in intensive care, went into cold blue,
Wow.
and my daughter was there, and what happened with the nurse.
Well, first of all, that's the only time I actually got scared.
Yeah.
And then coming back from lunch, and all of a sudden you hear these bells go off and people are running there. And so and I'm just sort of standing there. But there was a nurse, and she wasn't even on that ward, but she could see, and she immediately sees. She said, "Come on with me," and she took me to another office, and she said, "Would you like to have prayer?"
Wow.
And I said,
Complete
"Yes."
stranger.
Yeah, and it was just really nice. And so people come from all sorts of different directions and everything. And she wasn't black; she was white, But she had this feeling, and you just knew that she had this compassion and was feeling what you were.
But as the Lord sending her to you.
Exactly.
Amen. In your
Such an
toughest
angel.
moment.
Exactly.
Yes.
But we want to thank Vernell and Tom Howell, Howell, for sharing with you, our friends, on this special
Yes.
program today on Happily Married Monday with the Jolly, but specifically where you are understanding that it's for sickness and in health.
In
And that-
sickness
And they have proven that if you put God first and you have faith, that you can be an example like her and him of how you stay happily married and you beat back these challenges because of your love for one another and love for God. Thank y'all.
All right, thank you.
Thank y'all. God bless y'all and see you soon.